Rob. What's happening, everybody?
Yo, bro.
You fellas know what you want?
Where's Shirley?
She stepped out.
Where'd she go?
To the beauty parlor. You want to wait for her?
No, we don't have that much time.
Come on, guys. What do you want?
I have a cheeseburger.
Me too.
Coming up.
All right. Hey, Rob.
What's happening?
What's going on,
Hey,
Rerun?
Rerun. Why are you smiling like...
You'd be smiling too if you just made a date with the woman of your dreams.
You mean you going out with Sarah Lee?
No, chump.
Well, who's your dream girl?
I don't think you guys know her, but you will. She's meeting me here in a few minutes.
Oh, where are you going on your big date?
Church.
Church?
Church.
Yeah, we're going to meet the high priest of the Baba people.
The Baba who?
Not Baba who, Baba Lou. Baba Lou.
Joke not, ye of little minds.
Huh?
We're going to meet the high priest of the Baba people because my date's the high priestess.
The high priestess? Oh, where'd you meet this priestess?
On the corner of 5th and La Brea. And I'll never forget it. There I was coming out of the supermarket. And there she was standing on the corner with the tambourine, singing. Shalagoon, shak, shak. Shalagoon, shak, shak.
Shalagoon, what?
Shak, shak. That's when she came over to talk to me about my Twinkie.
Huh?
I was eating a Twinkie at the time, and she said I shouldn't eat unnatural foods. And as high priestess of her people, she was gonna make me her special project.
Well, wait a minute, Rerun. You're giving up Twinkies just because of a girl? Now, that's unnatural.
Dwayne, life is love is not just a girl.
What?
Life is love. That's her name.
But be careful. I mean, there are a lot of new religions doing good work, but there are plenty of those fly-by-night religious cults. So you can't believe everything you hear.
That's right. You can't believe everything you hear.
Hello, Rerun.
Raj, Dwayne, this is the high priestess of the Baba people.
Hello, Dwayne.
High priestess.
Hello, Roger.
Babaloo.
Well, we'd better be going because we don't want to be late for the service. It was so nice meeting you.
Oh, it was nice meeting you.
See you guys later.
Shalagum, shak, shalagum,
Boy, Raj, I didn't realize people who went to church could look like that.
Here you go. Hey, what was Wanda Jordan doing in here?
Ah, that was Life is Love.
Life is what?
Life is love.
Life is love, huh? Boy, Wanda hasn't changed a bit.
What are you talking about?
Wanda Jordan is one of the biggest con artists around. She once tried to pass off some counterfeit bills on me.
Well, how'd you know they were counterfeit?
George Washington had a mustache. She's bad news.
Oh, no, poor Rerun.
Now, wait a second. Now, let's not jump to conclusions. It could be that this Wanda is a changed person. I mean, for all we know, she could have reformed and turned over a whole new leaf because of her experience with the Bob Rama people.
No, I think that was Robber Mama Robber.
No. It was Baba Rabba Baba.
Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo.
What are you talking about?
Some new weird religious group, and she's the high priestess.
Wanda? A high priestess? She's really getting good at being bad, I'll give her that. Bippity boppity boo.
Well, I'm leaving for the PTA meeting now, Roger, and I know I can depend on you to take care of Dee tonight.
What? Mama, when did you tell me to take care of Dee tonight?
Just a second ago.
She's right, Raj. I heard her. Try to pay more attention to your mother.
But Mama, I've already made plans. I'm going to the movies with Dwayne and Rerun.
So, take Dee with you.
But Mama...
Look on the bright side, Raj. You'll be better off.
And how's that?
Well, with me along, you'll be too embarrassed to walk up to some strange girl in your deep, cool voice. Hey, baby, Big Raj here. And that way you won't beg me to stop laughing through the whole movie because the girl called you a four-eyed fool.
The kid has a wild imagination.
You just take care of your assistant. He has enough money for both of you. Goodbye, children.
Call me when you're ready to go. I'll be upstairs with the movie section.
Oh, hi, Miss Thomas.
Hi, Dwayne.
Bye, Miss Thomas. Hey. Hey, Raj, something the matter, man?
Well, Dee has to go to the movies with us. But that's not the real problem. I still don't know how to tell Rerun that Life is Love is a fake.
It's simple. You just say, Rerun, she's a fake. And then shove a Twinkie in his mouth to kill the pain.
Hey, what's happening, Rod?
Hey, Rerun.
What it be like, Dwayne?
Hey, Rerun. It's gonna be all right, buddy. You'll see. It's gonna be all right, buddy.
Huh? Dwayne, what are you talking about?
Hey, nothing. Hey, what do you say we go to the movies, buddy?
Raj, about the movies. We have to do it some other time. The Baba and Baba people are having a very important meeting tonight. Life is Love said I should be there.
Yeah, well, Rerun, I have something to tell you about Life is Love.
What is it?
Sit down. Now, Rerun, you gotta listen to me. Because what I have to say isn't easy. But you're one of my best friends. And I feel it's my duty to let you know the complete truth about her.
The truth is, she's the only one that made me want to go on a diet and lose weight, do well in school, and have some respect for myself. But if there's more truth, go ahead, tell me. Go ahead. What's the truth?
The truth is, we're going to the movies.
Oh, well, have a good time. See you cats later.
Now, look, Dwayne. Dwayne, will you come on in? Dwayne, trust me, there are no aliens from outer space in our house.
Well, how you know they're not upstairs? Because that's where they were when that poor family came home in the movie.
Well, we have a sign that says no aliens allowed above the first floor.
I swear this is the last time we let you pick the movie, D.
Of course, they could be hiding under the sofa.
Huh?
Will you two stop it? Sit down, Dwayne. Boy, you know, it just didn't seem the same without Rerun.
It must have been nice to go to a movie and not have everybody think your friend is the screen.
Dee, why don't you go upstairs? You sound tired.
Raj, we gotta talk to Rerun before he gets in any deeper.
I know, but I don't know how to tell him.
Will you two stop worrying about Rerun? I guarantee you he's gonna snap out of this.
And what makes you so sure?
Because I know Rerun. He's gonna get bored with this shakalaka business just the same as he got bored with wanting to be a dancer, a nightclub comedian, and a tree surgeon.
Oh, you know, I never thought about it like that.
Well, what do you think?
I think you look like Mount Baldy.
Dear sweet child.
Rerun, does all this stuff mean that you've actually joined this group?
Ah, Roger, I'm no longer called Rerun. I have given up my worldly name. From now on, you will refer to me by the name chosen for me by the Baba Rambaba people.
Well, what's that?
Abu Wazir Rotundo. It means large, happy one who sucks the lotus. Ah, this is a wonderful day. I feel that I can now inspire.
You look more like you could perspire.
Dear sweet child.
Excuse me, Dwayne. Now, Shamu.
That's Abu.
Oh, right. Abu. Why didn't you tell someone you're gonna go and do this?
Knowing how you feel about my priestess life is love, I knew you would not approve.
How did you find out?
Well, I was in the soda shop and I bumped into Rob.
Is the poor man gonna live?
I am convinced that Rob is mistaken. And you may think whatever you want. And you may say whatever you want. And believe me, it's all right. For you see, Ralph is not a vengeful God.
Ralph?
Ralph is the name of our God, the symbol of all that's natural, clean, and pure.
And you call him Ralph?
Ralph is not a him. Ralph is a head of lettuce.
You worship a head of lettuce?
We do not worship the lettuce. We worship Mother Nature. Mother Nature's our divinity. The lettuce is only a symbol.
Oh, is that why your head looks like the bottom of a salad bowl?
Snicker all you want. But let me tell you this. Since life is love convinced me to accept Ralph as my savior, I have found tranquility and true inner peace. I only wish you all could somehow be inside of me to feel it.
There's certainly enough room.
Dear sweet child.
Hands off, Kojak.
Now, tell me something. Did this life is love convince you to do anything else? Like give her money for that religion?
Don't be ridiculous.
Are you trying to tell me she didn't ask for any money at all?
She didn't ask for 1 penny. The high priest did.
Oh, man, Rerun, how much money did you give these people?
Dwayne, the amount is not important, especially since I no longer have any need for money. All members of the Baba Rambaba must give up all their worldly possessions. All we need is Mother Nature and Ralph.
Rerun, how much money did you give him?
$43.
$43? Don't you see they're making a fool out of you?
Yeah, ball one.
Brothers, dear sweet sister, I don't expect you to understand because you have yet to experience inner peace. You know, life is love could have picked any one of us, but I have a feeling that Ralph knew I was ready. And now, if you excuse me, I must go to the temple and begin my fast.
Your fast?
All new members of the Baba Rambaba must shave their heads and fast for 3 days in order to cleanse the soul. We must then give the priest the money we would have spent on food and afro sheen. It's part of the initiation.
Man.
Abu, don't get me wrong. I know you really believe in all this stuff. But tell me, is it worth giving up everything you have?
Roger, what did I have to give up? My life was a total zero. I'm overweight. I've been in the 12th grade for 3 years.
Overweight and overdue.
I don't have to engage in silly discussions with people whose souls have no faith or purity. Goodbye, Roger. Goodbye, Dwayne. Goodbye, dear sweet child. Perhaps someday you will come to know what I have come to know. But until then, praise Ralph! Praise him! Hi, Ralph. I guess everybody's gone, huh? I shall now squat and pray.
$997.42. Not a bad take.
Woo! All right. Oh, my goodness. This is better than the take in San Diego. How much longer do we have to do this?
Don't worry, babe. Tomorrow, while all those poor, misguided fools are out there chanting to their letters, you and I will be on our way to the peaceful waters of Tahiti with their cabbage.
Come here. I can hardly wait. You know, maybe I will miss that fat kid after all. I get such a big kick out of watching him squat.
I can't believe I fell for that.
Okay, just settle down. We're trying to think of something.
But not only did they rip me off, but they made me shave off my dynamite fro. But please, nobody say I told you so.
But everybody did tell you so.
D, help, don't hinder.
I've had enough. I think I'll go get a tuna fish sandwich with mayonnaise, tomatoes, and Ralph.
Rerun, tell me more about this Ralph.
Oh, Ralph is lettuce. Mother Nature is the force. They all respect Mother Nature. They say she's the true meaning, the spirit, you know, the power.
Oh, she is she? Well, have you ever seen her?
Nobody sees her, Mrs. Thomas. I mean, some of the members have claimed to have visions, but nobody really sees her.
Not yet.
What are you getting at, Mama?
Oh, nothing. Just a little fun, maybe.
Thank you for the donation, brother. Now remember, followers, our goal is to be free of sin and money by midnight. Does anyone else have a vision they want to tell us about?
I do.
Ah, Brother Abu. Add your worldly money to the pot there and tell us about your vision.
You had a vision, Abu.
May I squat?
Gladly.
Not there, Abu. Would you mind doing it somewhere else?
Sorry. I seem to be stuck.
What? You seem to be what? Come on, brother. Get up off.
Come on. Ah, I knew it. It's like in the vision. Mother Nature herself spoke to me. All say luck, luck. Nice, nice. And she said, squat thyself across the pot, for I don't need money. And in return the money to the brethren and the sisters, for Mother Nature only needs love. Oh, shout luck, luck,
That's enough vision, Abu. Now get your squat off my pot.
Only Mother Nature can remove me.
But Mother Nature will never come.
Then we better call a tow truck.
She is a concept, an idea, a dream.
A dream? Did you hear that? She called me a dream. Well, stand back. Your dreams has come true.
Mother Nature, she is here. Oh, shout, lack, Mother Nature, remove me from this pot.
Rise, my son, and all take back your money.
Now, wait a minute here.
Let me put it this way. High priest and high priestess, bug off!
Now, wait a minute, Mama. I done told you.
Don't you put your hands on me. You see, it's not nice to feel Mother Nature. Now, sisters and brothers. Let us go. Mother Nature. That was so funny.
Oh, Mama, did you see the look on his face when you came in?
Oh, honey, I couldn't see much anything through all that smoke. But, Rerun, I hope you've learned something by all this.
That's right, Rerun. Believe me, the worst thing a guy can do is to lose his cool over a pretty face.
Amen.
Hi, Mama. Hi, guys.
Oh, hi, baby.
Hey, D.
Raj, by the way, some girl called and said she wanted you to come over and help her with her homework.
Who was it?
Sharon Lerner.
Sharon Lerner? That's a beautiful homecoming queen.
And a good example of how I could lose my cool over a pretty face. But no, I realize there are more important things than a beautiful face. Luckily, none of them are here.
Later. Oh, Roger, come back.
Shakalaka,
I'm never gonna pass this course. Why do we need the new math? Doesn't the old math still work?
Yeah, Rerun, but the new math's quicker. All right, say you want to multiply 6 by 2.
Okay,
The 2 you divide in half. That's 1 twice.
right.
Each one you multiply by 6. That's 6 and 6.
Uh-huh.
Add 6 and 6, and that's 12, and there's your answer.
What?
12. 12, Rerun. 12 is the answer.
What was the question?
What's happening?
Whoa.
Rod, you can't play basketball dressed like a preacher.
Yeah, man, what are you all dressed up for?
I was absent from school when they took the pictures for the yearbook.
Oh, well, hurry up and change. Game starts in 20 minutes.
I can't. I have to go to the photographer's studio. My mama will kill me if I don't get this picture taken.
You know, Raj, that suit makes you look a lot older.
Oh, thank you, Dwayne.
Yeah, but the tie gives it away.
Fine, that's fine. Give me a nice smile now. There we go. Beautiful. That's what we're looking for. Great. Great. There we go. Round here. Beautiful. There we go. All right, Jeannie, that's great. You can get dressed now.
Oh, thanks.
But you don't have to.
But I think I will. Otherwise, I might look a little strange going home on the bus.
Right. I just meant you're beautiful just the way you are.
Oh, thank you. Hi, I'm Jeannie Wilson.
Roger Thomas.
Are you here for the beer commercial?
Beer commercial?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's the light brew with the foamy texture for the macho man with the sincere taste.
Good. I knew you were an actor the moment I laid eyes on you.
You did?
You did?
Yeah, I've done a few roles.
Oh, really? Which ones?
Did you see Star Wars?
Yeah.
I was him.
Come on.
Yeah, I was one of the robots.
Which one?
The cute one. You know, the one that went,
How long have you been acting?
Oh, wow. Let's see. I'm 21 now. 4 years, ever since I graduated high school, with honors.
Of course.
How old are you?
I'm 19.
19?
Mm-hmm.
That was a great age for me. I was going to star in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Really?
Yeah, but they decided to go white. You see, at 19, I was black. So, only 19, huh?
Yeah, but I can play older parts. Here's a picture to give you an idea.
Oh, great. It gives me lots of ideas.
Okay, now I'm ready for you. Now, what did you say your name was again?
Thomas. Mr. Roger Thomas.
And you're here for the high school...
Hi. Bye. Bye.
What happened, D? You smashed your hand?
Oh, you're messing up my nail polish.
Nail polish? Hey.
Where's Raj?
Upstairs.
Hey, Raj, hurry up. We're gonna be late for the movie.
Yeah. Sorry, fellas. I have a date a half hour. Can't go.
With who?
An older woman.
How old is she?
Around 20. I met her at the photography studio. And take a look.
What a great picture.
Look at that bikini.
It's not the bikini I'm looking at. It's the hot dog standing in the background.
Hey, Raj, man, how'd you pull this off?
Charm, good looks, and a great personality.
Bring some of that hot air over here. It'll help me dry my nails.
Hey, I got a great idea. Why don't you bring her to the movies with us?
Movie? That would be very boring for a woman of the world. I'm taking her to dinner at the Eiffel Tower.
Paris? Raj, you missed your biology test Monday.
It's a restaurant in Beverly Hills. Very fancy.
Well, do you have the money for that?
Well, I got most of it, but I still need a little bit more. What am I going to do?
I'll help you out, Brother Raj. You want to take her to a reasonable French restaurant? Take her to Jacques in the box.
Well, all right. Here, Raj. I got $2, man, if you promise to pay me back.
I promise.
Raj, I got $1.50, but you gotta promise to tell us everything that happens. Everything.
I'll tell you everything. Look, you guys go. I got to get out of here, too.
All right, later on, Raj.
All right, later.
It's
Later,
late.
Pipsqueak. Hi, Miss Thomas.
Oh, hi, bye, Miss Thomas.
Hi, Mama.
Hi, baby.
Hi, Mama.
Raj. Hey, don't you look nice?
Thank you, Mama.
Oh, why are you all dressed up in your Sunday outfit? Is there a church social or something tonight?
Possibly, Raj.
Is there, Raj?
Well, I mean, why else would I be dressed up in my Sunday outfit?
Young lady, what have you got on the tip of your fingers?
My nails.
D?
Nail polish. Face it, Mom, I'm not getting any younger.
Now, that's the trouble with this generation. Everybody's growing up too fast. Let me fix this for you, Don. But not my Roger. Have a nice time at the church tonight, Don.
Thank you, Mama.
All right.
Raj,
Yes?
your tie is out.
Oh, thank you, Dee.
You don't understand. Your tie is out.
And then?
And then we ordered hamburger for me, a leg of lamb for her.
Wow. And then?
And then we ordered chocolate souffle for dessert.
And then?
The waiter brought our food.
The waiter brought their food.
We ate dinner.
What happened after dinner, Raj?
She went to the ladies' room.
Oh, the ladies' room. That's heavy, oh.
And then what happened?
I walked her home.
I don't want to hear that stuff. Tell me more about the leg of lamb.
Rerun. What happened after you walked her home?
She went inside.
Yeah?
That's it.
That's it? You mean to tell me you spent $20 to walk a girl home?
You didn't even get to kiss her goodnight?
Older women don't go for that kid stuff. I'm playing it cool. See, she'll be at the photographer's this afternoon. I'll just drop by.
We'll go with you.
Yeah, I want to see her in her bikini.
No, you won't. You guys aren't going. She doesn't know I'm 17. You'll blow it for me.
Say I'm your son.
Me too. We won't tell.
I know, because you won't be there. Well, I'll see you later, kids.
Beautiful, Jeannie. There you go. Great. Beautiful. That's fine. That's very good.
Excuse me. Mr. Johnson.
Who are you?
Darryl Wayburn. I'm here to pose for my picture.
What picture?
High school yearbook, Mr. Johnson.
Oh, yeah. You kids drive me crazy. I mean, you were supposed to be here 2 days ago.
I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson, but I had a cold. But I'm over it now. Excuse me.
Yeah, well, why don't you just give me 5 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Okay, now let's get back to work, Jeannie. There we go.
Excuse me. Hey, Mr. Johnson, I bought a tie. Should I put it on?
Yeah, well, the dressing room's right back there. Mirrors and everything.
Excuse me. I'll just put this tie on. I'll be right back, all right?
Okay, wait, here we go.
Hello? Hello? I just dropped by for my pictures. Did they come out good?
I'm a photographer, not a plastic surgeon. Okay, I'll get them for you.
Hi, Roger. I had a nice time last night.
Yeah, so did I. Would you like to go out again?
What time?
Let's see, I'm starring in a play. It starts at 7, how about 7:30?
Now, here are your pictures.
Thank you, Johnson.
Jeannie, why don't you put on another outfit while I get reloaded, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Bye, Roger.
Hey, bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Was that Roger I just heard? Roger Thomas?
Yeah, you know him?
Yeah, he lives around the corner from you. We go to the same school.
Oh, acting school.
No, high school.
No, you have the wrong Roger Thomas. Didn't you see him in Star Wars?
Yeah, he sat right next to me in the balcony.
Raj, can I give you some advice free of charge?
No,
Suit yourself, only trying to help.
I I don't need your help.
If you don't need my help, you don't need my help.
Right on. What's the free advice?
The free advice was free when I offered it to you. You turned it down. Now the free advice is a quarter.
Oh, yeah? Then just skip it. Shh, all right.
All right, what?
Here's a quarter.
Quarter? You walked out on me when I was gonna let you steal my free advice for a quarter. Now my free advice is 50 cents.
Here's another quarter. Now, what is the advice?
Sit down. Women like men who are intelligent, bright, and strong. So never, I mean never, let her know you are stupid enough to pay 50 cents for free advice. Raj?
Yeah.
Get the door, I'm busy.
Look, you know I'm in a hurry.
Then move it.
Hi, Roger.
Oh.
Aren't you going to invite me in?
Oh, sure, come on in.
Thank you.
Come right on in.
Hi, my name is Dee. My brother's not the politest person on earth.
Yeah, Dee, meet Jeannie.
Hi, Dee.
Yeah, Dee's my sister. Hey, make yourself at home, Dee. She visits me at my bachelor pad from time to time.
Yeah, to collect my allowance.
Well, as you can see, I need to get dressed. I must have dozed off in my jacuzzi. But I'll be right back. My clothes are all laid out on my water bed.
You can sit down.
Oh, thank you.
So you're Miss Beautiful Model.
Well, I wouldn't say beautiful.
Raj did.
He's sweet. He said some wonderful things about you, too.
He did?
Yes, he did.
That's a switch. So tell me, what's it like being old?
Old? I wouldn't say I was old either.
Raj did.
That's because to him, I am old.
Oh, then you know he's still in high school.
Yes, I found out by accident. That's why I'm here, to break our date for tonight.
Poor Raj. Be kind.
I'll try.
I'll get lost. Tell Raj I'm at a friend's.
Okay.
Did he really say nice things about me?
Yes. He said that you were very smart and that you had your head on straight.
He didn't say anything about my mouth?
No.
Look, Jeannie, if you put Raj down just because he's younger, he's gonna feel terrible.
Yeah. Any advice?
Listen, Jeannie, Raj will buy anything. He's a pushover. Just push him over easy.
I will. And Dee, thanks. Bye.
Every little breeze seems to whisper, Jenny. You look beautiful.
Thank you, Roger.
Where's Dee?
Oh, she went over to a friend's.
Every little breeze.
Roger, I'd really like to talk to you.
Ah, and I like to talk to you. Shall we talk on the couch?
Where else?
Now, what do you want to talk about?
I'd like to talk about us.
Ah, my favorite couple. Let me get close so I can hear every word.
Well, what I wanted to say, dear, was...
Hey!
What's happening?
Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
What are you guys doing here?
She's not bad, Raj.
I know. Will you leave?
Roger, aren't you going to introduce me?
See, Raj, I'm Dwayne, one of his nephews.
And I'm little Rerun.
Hi, fellas. Roger and I were just about to have a tete-a-tete.
Tay-to-tay? Did you hear that, Rerun? They gonna have a tay-to-tay, man.
All right. Hey, I'll just have a little taste of tater. And then we'll be off.
You please get out of here.
All right, we going. Wow, right in your own house.
Bye, Dwayne.
Bye.
Bye, little Rerun.
Bye.
See you later.
Yeah, much. Kids today. Now, where were we?
We were right here. I'm so glad you're finally making your move.
Just call me Beacons.
Don't you think it's time we stopped all this kid stuff?
Sure.
Are you ready?
Uh-huh.
I hope you know what you're doing.
I'll figure it out.
Good, because when I fall in love, it's forever.
Forever?
That's right. I'll belong only to you. I'll quit working.
Wait, whoa. Wait a minute. Why? You're young, you're healthy, you got your whole future ahead of you.
But why should I work? Your acting career's going beautifully. Besides, who'll take care of the kids?
What kids?
Well, after I move in here, we might as well start...
Move in here?
Yeah, after I move in here, we might as well start raising a family. I figure I'll have a baby every year.
A baby? What would my mama think? Well, she visits me from time to time.
That's nice, but enough of that.
Laney, I got something to tell you. I got something to tell you. See, look, there's something you should know about me. Look, I mean, I'm going to be very honest with you. But I want you to be strong because what I'm going to say might hurt you.
What is it, Raj?
My acting career is not going as well as you think it is. I mean, I did Star Wars, but after that, nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing. You see, Jeannie, an actor's life is a hard one. There's no business like show business. You're riding high in April, you're shot down in May. And as the final curtain...
Roger. Does that mean goodbye?
I'm afraid so, Jeannie. As the French say, hasta la vista.
Okay. Bye, Roger. And thanks for letting me down easy.
Hi, Raj. I just saw Miss Beautiful.
Yeah, well, she had to go home early. You know, she's a model, you know.
Oh, yeah? What'd you talk about?
Oh, you know, just things. But it got kind of dull. I don't think I'm going to see her anymore.
Why is that?
Well, after I talked to her for a while, I just realized I didn't like her that much.
I can believe that.
You can?
Yeah, she wasn't your type.
And she wasn't, was she?
You were too good for her.
Yeah, I was too good for her. That's nice of you, D. Thanks.
Thanks. I'm not in the thanks business, bub. This one's on me.
And then?
Oh, what more can I say? I mean, she did a little this, and I did a little that.
A little of what? See, I don't know what this is, and I don't know what that is. And I may not even know what this and that is when you tell me. But it may not matter because you only did a little of it anyway. But I want to hear it word for word. What is this and that?
How old are you?
16.
Well, you're too young to know about that. But I will tell you what this is. This is baloney. Because nothing happened. We broke up.
No kidding?
No kidding.
Well, don't feel bad. I spent the past 3 years with an older woman. And believe me, it was no thrill.
What older woman you spent 3 years with, Rerun?
My senior homeroom teacher.
Rerun's life had always been a whirlwind of misadventures, mostly fueled by his own restless energy and a tendency to leap before he looked. And yet, in the quiet moments of the early morning, he sometimes caught himself wondering if there was more to life than the familiar rhythm of the streets he had grown up on and the constant tug-of-war between trouble and laughter that had defined his days since high school. That morning, the sun was just creeping over the horizon, casting golden streaks through the half-open blinds of the small apartment he shared with Dee. And for the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to linger in a thought that had been bothering him for weeks. The feeling that he had been living in the shadows of others, that his vibrant personality and endless jokes had always been a cover for a deeper desire to be seen, truly seen, as more than just the guy who could always lighten the mood. Dee's soft snore reminded him that he wasn't alone, and he found himself smiling despite the heaviness in his chest. She had this calming presence that contrasted so sharply with his own constant motion, and while he often joked at her expense, Rerun realized that she had an uncanny ability to anchor him when the world seemed too large, too fast, too chaotic. As he brewed his coffee, the rich aroma filling the apartment, he pondered what it would take to step out of the patterns that had defined him for years, the repeated routines, the predictable jokes, the endless small victories that felt hollow in retrospect, and instead, to take a leap that didn't rely on laughter or charm, but on genuine, raw courage. The thought made his stomach twist in a way that was equal parts thrilling and terrifying, and yet he couldn't shake the persistent tug toward change, towards something he had never dared to chase before, a sense of true purpose. His eyes fell on the stack of letters on the kitchen counter, unopened and neglected, reminders of missed opportunities and calls unanswered, and he realized that each one represented a door he had avoided opening, either out of fear, laziness, or a misguided belief that he was content with the life he had cobbled together from fragments of ambition and bursts of youthful energy. The sun climbed higher, spilling light across the worn carpet, illuminating the small cracks in the walls that he had ignored for years, just as he had ignored the cracks in himself, and he wondered if he could finally acknowledge them without feeling the familiar sting of inadequacy. He sipped his coffee, hot and bitter, and let the warmth spread through his hands, imagining it as a tiny shield against the anxiety that had a way of creeping in when he allowed himself to dream beyond the sitcom-like safety of his routines. Outside, the city was waking up, cars rumbling, voices echoing off brick buildings, life moving forward regardless of his hesitations, and he felt a surge of both fear and exhilaration at the thought that he could either remain a passive observer or step into the fray in a way that truly mattered. The phone rang suddenly, startling him so much that he nearly spilled the coffee, and when he answered, it was Dwayne, his longtime friend whose ambition and focus had always both intimidated and inspired him, reminding him of plans they had once made together, dreams that had been shelved in the face of practical concerns, and Rerun found himself promising, in a shaky voice, that he would meet him later that day, as though the simple act of showing up might signify a commitment to the change he longed for. Hanging up, he felt a strange combination of dread and anticipation, a recognition that the day ahead could unfold in ways that would either reinforce his old patterns or shatter them entirely, and for once, he hoped it was the latter. Dressing quickly, choosing clothes that felt more like armor than expression, He glanced at himself in the mirror and studied the lines that had begun to etch themselves into his face, signs of stress, of laughter, of sleepless nights spent, wrestling with thoughts he hadn't shared with anyone. And he realized that this was perhaps the first moment in years when he allowed himself to consider not just what he did for others, but what he wanted for himself. Leaving the apartment, the sunlight warm on his shoulders, he walked the familiar streets with a heightened awareness, noticing details that had previously escaped him. The way the shopkeeper greeted every passerby with a practiced smile, the children racing along the sidewalk, their laughter bright and unself-conscious, the smell of fresh bread mingling with the distant hum of traffic, and he marveled at the simple beauty of the world he had always taken for granted. As he approached the cafe where he had agreed to meet Dwayne, his heart beat faster, a steady drum of nerves and excitement, and he rehearsed the words he might say, the confessions he might make, the truths he had long suppressed under layers of humor and bravado. Inside, Dwayne waved from a corner table, already immersed in a notebook filled with scribbles and diagrams, the concentration on his face so intense that it almost seemed sacred, and Rerun felt a pang of envy mingled with admiration, recognizing in his friend a reflection of the purpose he had been avoiding. Sitting down, they exchanged tentative greetings, and after a few moments of small talk, the conversation veered into familiar territory. The projects they had once dreamed of, the people they had hoped to impact, the compromises they had made in the name of practicality, and Rerun found himself opening up in a way that felt both unfamiliar and necessary, confessing doubts and fears he had carried in silence for years, exposing a vulnerability that was at once terrifying and liberating. Dwayne listened, nodding thoughtfully, his eyes unwavering, and when Rerun paused, unsure if he should continue, his friend leaned forward and said simply, "You're capable of more than you give yourself credit for." Words that struck Rerun with the force of a revelation, as though a veil had been lifted and he could finally glimpse a version of himself that had been waiting, patient and silent, for the right moment to emerge. They spent hours in the cafe, talking, planning, revisiting old ideas with fresh perspectives, sketching out steps that seemed both daunting and invigorating. And with each passing minute, Rerun felt a growing sense of clarity, a conviction that he could no longer remain passive in his own life. The conversation eventually drifted to lighter topics, to jokes and shared memories that had always been a cornerstone of their friendship. And yet, even in laughter, there was a new undercurrent, a seriousness, a recognition that life was not merely a series of punchlines, but a stage upon which choices had consequences, some small, some monumental, and he felt ready, at long last, to step into that stage fully. As the afternoon waned and the cafe began to empty, they made tentative plans to reconvene, to take tangible steps toward the goals they had long deferred, and Rerun left with a renewed sense of purpose, the late sunlight casting long shadows on the pavement, each step forward a quiet declaration of intent. Walking back home, he felt the city differently, not as a backdrop to his habitual antics, but as a landscape filled with possibility, challenges, and beauty. Each street corner a metaphorical crossroads, each passerby a reminder that life was lived in interaction, connection, and engagement. By the time he returned to the apartment, the sky was painted with shades of pink and orange, and he stood at the window, looking out at the city lights beginning to flicker on, feeling, for the first time in years, that he was truly seeing, not just observing, the life around him. That evening, as Dee joined him on the couch, curious about the thoughtful expression on his face, he found himself speaking with a candor that surprised even him, sharing fragments of the revelations he had experienced that day, and she listened without judgment, her presence steadying him, a reminder that the journey toward growth did not have to be solitary, that support and understanding were not weaknesses but strengths. Nights settled over the city, quiet and contemplative, and Rerun lay awake later, replaying the day's events, analyzing his emotions, and allowing himself a cautious optimism, a recognition that change was neither immediate nor easy, but undeniably within reach. As he drifted into a tentative sleep, the future felt both vast and intimate, an expanse waiting to be explored, and for the first time in a long time, Rerun allowed himself the simple, profound hope that he might finally step out of the shadows he had lived in for so long, and, in doing so, discover a light that was entirely his own, a light he could not only see but share, illuminating the path for himself and, perhaps, for others whose journeys were intertwined with his own, creating a web of experience, laughter, vulnerability, and courage that might, someday, ripple outward in ways he could only begin to imagine. The following morning, Rerun awoke with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The clarity he had felt the day before tempered by the creeping awareness that intentions alone were not enough to reshape a life long accustomed to the comfort of routine. And as he stretched and swung his legs over the side of the bed, he realized that change would demand persistence, discipline, and, most frighteningly, confrontation with parts of himself he had long ignored or dismissed with humor. The apartment was quiet, the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing outside providing the backdrop for his thoughts, and he noticed the subtle ways in which the morning light transformed familiar spaces, making shadows dance along the walls in patterns that seemed almost symbolic, as though the universe itself was inviting him to notice, to reflect, and to act. Dee was still asleep, her breathing steady, and Rerun took a moment to observe her, marveling at her calmness, the kind of inner peace he often envied but rarely achieved, and he wondered if some of that serenity could be contagious, if being near someone so centered might help him anchor his own scattered energy. He dressed quickly, choosing a simple outfit that allowed ease of movement, yet felt intentional, as though the act of choosing his clothes could reinforce the decisions he was beginning to make in larger, more consequential areas of his life. Breakfast was a quick affair, the ritual of coffee and toast grounding him, and he found himself mentally reviewing the plans he and Dwayne had sketched out the previous day. Meetings with old contacts, revisiting abandoned projects, writing down goals that had been buried under years of procrastination, and imagining the feeling of accomplishment when even the smallest steps were completed. The sense of possibility was both exhilarating and overwhelming, and he felt a gnawing tension in his stomach, a reminder that growth rarely arrived without discomfort. Leaving the apartment, he moved through the city streets with a heightened awareness, noticing details he had previously overlooked. The way sunlight refracted through a puddle left from last night's rain, the faint scent of flowers spilling from a small garden patch between apartment buildings, the rhythm of footsteps and voices blending into a symphony of urban life. And he felt a profound sense of connection to a world he had often treated as merely a stage for his antics rather than a living, breathing entity to engage with meaningfully. On the way to his first appointment, he passed the corner where he and Dwayne had once joked endlessly about grandiose ideas, their laughter bouncing off the brick walls as though challenging the city itself to respond. And for a moment, nostalgia mingled with a quiet determination. Those memories were no longer just echoes. They were reminders that the foundation of his creativity and resilience had always been there, waiting for him to harness it with intention rather than happenstance. At the co-working space where they had arranged to meet a potential collaborator, Rerun felt the familiar jitters of self-doubt, but he consciously acknowledged them, letting the nerves sharpen his focus rather than paralyze him. And when the door opened to reveal a sharply dressed man with a keen gaze and a stack of notes, Rerun extended his hand with confidence, surprising himself with the firmness of his grip and the steadiness in his voice. The conversation began formally, but quickly warmed into an exchange of ideas, brainstorming and problem-solving that demanded attention, flexibility, and creativity, and Rerun found himself reveling in the challenge, in the mental gymnastics required to engage with someone equally invested in results, someone who could both critique and inspire without judgment. And he realized that this was the kind of stimulation he had been craving, beyond the comedy and camaraderie of everyday life. Hours slipped by unnoticed as they outlined strategies, discussed potential pitfalls, and envisioned outcomes. And for the first time in years, Rerun left a meeting feeling energized rather than drained, carrying with him not just a list of tasks, but a sense of possibility that seemed tangible, almost electric, coursing through his veins. As he walked back through the bustling streets, he reflected on the day's progress, noting how small decisions, responding to a message, showing up punctually, listening attentively, could compound into meaningful change, and he felt a cautious pride, tempered by the understanding that consistency would be crucial. One day of insight could be squandered without follow-through. He stopped by a park, watching children chase each other across the grass, their laughter ringing clear and unself-conscious, and for a moment, he allowed himself to sit on a bench and simply breathe, observing the flow of life around him, realizing that engagement with the world could be both action and contemplation, that moments of stillness were not weakness but preparation for meaningful movement. The phone rang, this time Dwayne checking in, and their brief conversation sparked new ideas, reaffirming the momentum they were building and reminding Rerun that accountability was a key component in sustaining progress, that even the most independent journeys benefited from the tether of friendship and shared purpose. Evening arrived, and Rerun returned to the apartment with groceries in hand, the mundane tasks of domestic life blending seamlessly with the heightened awareness he had cultivated over the day, each chore a small but significant exercise in mindfulness and intention, from unpacking the items with care to preparing a simple dinner that nourished both body and spirit. Dee joined him in the kitchen, curious about his day, and he shared select moments, the highlights that carried both satisfaction and revelation, noticing how her encouragement and insight added depth to his reflections, providing perspective that he had often sought but rarely articulated. After dinner, they settled in the living room, the soft glow of a lamp casting warmth across the space, and Rerun found himself opening up further, discussing not just accomplishments but feelings, the anxieties that lingered beneath excitement, the lingering doubt that change required more than effort. It required resilience, patience, and the courage to confront discomfort without retreating to humor or distraction. They talked for hours, exploring the implications of new commitments, weighing risks and benefits, and in those conversations, Rerun discovered a profound sense of intimacy and trust, a reminder that transformation was not a solitary endeavor but a shared journey, enriched by those willing to walk alongside him, offering feedback, support, and a mirror in which he could examine his evolving self. As night deepened, Rerun retreated to his bedroom, laying out the plan he and Dwayne had developed with meticulous notes, highlighting priorities, timelines, and contingencies, and he felt a rare combination of structure and freedom, the two forces coexisting in a way that promised both stability and opportunity. Sleep came gradually, as his mind reviewed the day's lessons, the conversations, the steps taken, the insights gained, and he felt a quiet resolve settling over him, a recognition that the path forward would not always be straightforward, but that deliberate engagement with life, with people, and with himself would yield results far more meaningful than the ephemeral satisfaction of easy laughter or fleeting distractions. Morning would bring new challenges, and Rerun was beginning to understand that true courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it, to embrace uncertainty, to recognize that growth was iterative, messy, and deeply rewarding, and that the light he sought was not a distant, unattainable ideal, but something that could be nurtured daily through choices, reflection, and connection. And as he drifted into sleep, the city outside silent now, but for the occasional distant siren or hum of an engine, Rerun felt a quiet, profound sense of alignment, as though the chaos of his past and the possibilities of his future were converging into a moment of potential, one in which he could, at last, see clearly, act decisively, and embrace the life he had long imagined but never fully pursued, a life that promised depth, purpose, and the kind of fulfillment that came not from applause or jokes, but from living authentically, courageously, and with unwavering attention to the world, the people in it, and the person he was becoming. The next day, Rerun woke with a sense of anticipation that pulsed like electricity through his veins, a recognition that the choices he had made so far were only the beginning, and that the real test of change would be in the sustained effort, the persistence to act even when motivation waned, even when fear whispered that old patterns were safer and more familiar, and he rose from bed with determination, noting the cool morning light spilling across his apartment and the quiet hum of the city, beginning to stir, feeling for the first time a connection not just to the people around him, but to the rhythm of life itself. Breakfast was simple, the ritual of coffee and toast grounding him as he reviewed his notebook, filled with scribbles and outlines of projects, reminders, and potential conversations, and he marveled at how something as ordinary as planning could feel revolutionary, how conscious attention to intention could transform routine into opportunity, how small steps could compound into meaningful momentum. Dee stirred in the background, offering a soft smile as she prepared for her own day, and Rerun felt a deep appreciation for her presence, the stability she provided, the gentle mirror of understanding she held up to him without demanding explanation or perfection, reminding him that meaningful support often came not from words but from consistent, quiet presence. As he stepped out into the streets, the air crisp and alive with the sound of early traffic and distant chatter, Rerun noticed details he had previously overlooked. The way sunlight bounced off windows, the faint scent of bakery goods drifting from a nearby shop, the rhythmic tap of shoes against pavement, the interplay of shadows and light that seemed almost deliberate in its beauty, and he realized that awareness itself was a practice, that mindfulness in even the most mundane moments could enrich experience and fortify resolve. Meeting Dwayne at their designated spot, Rerun felt a sense of nervous excitement, tempered by an emerging confidence, a recognition that his participation in these collaborative efforts was not just a favor or a duty, but a reflection of his own evolving commitment to growth and self-discovery, and that the energy he brought to their discussions could ripple outward, influencing not just outcomes, but the attitudes and efforts of those around him. The conversation quickly shifted from logistical planning to deeper reflections on purpose, obstacles, and personal accountability, and Rerun found himself articulating fears and uncertainties he had long buried under humor and deflection, admitting to vulnerabilities that were both uncomfortable and liberating, and feeling the weight of years of self-imposed limitation begin to lift, replaced by a nascent sense of agency. Ideas flowed between them like a current, sparking insights, challenging assumptions, and creating a sense of shared responsibility, a realization that collaboration was not just practical but transformative, that engaging with someone equally invested in meaningful outcomes demanded authenticity, creativity, and courage, and that these qualities could be cultivated only by embracing discomfort, uncertainty, and the willingness to act decisively. Hours passed unnoticed as they sketched proposals, evaluated potential challenges, and explored creative solutions, the intensity of focus blending with occasional laughter and reminiscence, grounding the work in both connection and joy, and Rerun felt a profound sense of alignment, a recognition that he was contributing in ways that mattered, that the effort was meaningful, and that his presence, ideas, and perspective held tangible value. As afternoon turned toward evening, Rerun walked home with a renewed sense of purpose, observing the interplay of life around him. The casual greetings exchanged between strangers, the children racing past with laughter, the steady cadence of the city itself, and he felt increasingly attuned to the dynamics of human connection, to the subtle cues and gestures that shaped relationships and communities, and to the potential impact of intention, presence, and attention in even the smallest interactions. Arriving at the apartment, he prepared a simple dinner, methodically chopping vegetables, simmering sauces, arranging ingredients with care, and he felt a quiet satisfaction in this routine task, recognizing that nurturing oneself and others was an integral part of sustaining momentum, of cultivating resilience, of grounding ambition in reality and human need. Dee joined him in the kitchen, curiosity evident in her eyes, and Rerun shared aspects of his day, the insights, challenges, and small victories, and in the exchange, he recognized the value of articulation, of verbalizing experience not for performance, but for reflection and accountability, the act itself strengthening both memory and intention. After dinner, they settled in the living room, the soft glow of a lamp casting warmth across familiar furnishings, and Rerun felt a sense of balance, a delicate interplay between effort and reflection, engagement and stillness, ambition and presence, understanding that meaningful change was iterative, requiring both action and contemplation, risk and care, courage and patience, and that each day's choices, no matter how small, contributed to a larger mosaic of growth. Late in the evening, Rerun reviewed his notebook, organizing tasks, prioritizing next steps, and allowing himself a moment of pride at the accumulation of effort, the tangible progress that contrasted sharply with years of deferred ambition, abandoned ideas, and half-hearted commitments. and he marveled at the quiet power of consistency, of showing up even when the outcome was uncertain, even when old habits beckoned with familiarity. The city outside had grown quiet, lights twinkling in distant windows, and Rerun allowed himself a rare moment of stillness, contemplating not just what he had accomplished, but who he was becoming. The emerging sense of self that was not defined by jokes, distractions, or habitual avoidance, but by intentional engagement, self-reflection, and the courage to act authentically. Sleep came gently, carrying him into dreams filled with possibility, reflection, and faint echoes of the day's conversations and plans, and he awoke intermittently with images of potential projects, new avenues to explore, and the awareness that each day offered both opportunity and responsibility, that the act of choosing to live intentionally was itself a declaration of autonomy, creativity, and resilience. The following morning, a call from a new collaborator added a layer of complexity to his schedule, a challenge that initially triggered familiar anxiety, but quickly transformed into an energizing puzzle, and Rerun embraced it with deliberate attention, recognizing that discomfort often heralded growth, that responsibility carried both risk and reward, and that the ability to navigate these dynamics was an essential component of the life he was striving to create. Each interaction, each decision, each moment of focus or distraction became a point of reflection, a small exercise in understanding cause and effect, consequence and opportunity, and Rerun began documenting insights not only for practical purposes, but as a method of self-awareness, noticing patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior, acknowledging weaknesses without judgment, and identifying strengths that could be leveraged toward meaningful impact. By afternoon, he had moved through multiple meetings, responded to emails, sketched ideas, and reviewed plans with meticulous attention, and while exhaustion tugged at his body, he felt a growing satisfaction, a recognition that diligence, patience, and deliberate action were producing results that could not have been anticipated a week prior, and that the process itself was as valuable as the outcomes it generated. Returning home as the sun began its descent, painting the sky in deep oranges and pinks, Rerun paused to appreciate the fleeting beauty, to reflect on progress, and to consider the next steps in a journey that was no longer abstract but tangible, immediate, and alive, and he felt a quiet, profound gratitude for the people, experiences, and inner resilience that had carried him to this point. That evening, he and Dee shared stories, laughter, and contemplative silence, each moment reinforcing bonds, providing perspective, and nurturing the sense of community that was essential for sustained growth. And Rerun recognized that transformation was not solitary but relational, that success was amplified through collaboration, support, and authentic connection, and that the integration of personal ambition with empathy, observation, and accountability created a foundation for lasting change. As night deepened, Rerun lay awake reflecting on the day, reviewing achievements, setbacks, and lessons learned, and he felt an emerging clarity, an understanding that life was a continuous series of choices, challenges, and reflections, that the light he sought was not a distant ideal, but a process cultivated through deliberate action, self-awareness, and intentional engagement, and that each day offered an opportunity to act not as he had in the past, but as the person he aspired to become, a person capable of courage, insight, authenticity, and influence in ways that could shape not just his own life, but the lives of those around him, creating ripples of meaningful impact that extended far beyond the immediate moment. And with that understanding, he finally drifted into sleep, anticipation and resolve coexisting, ready to meet the next day with openness, energy, and unwavering commitment to the path he had chosen to follow. The following morning, Rerun awoke with a renewed sense of purpose, the events of the past days settling into his consciousness not as fleeting victories, but as tangible shifts in his perspective, a recognition that growth was no longer theoretical but experiential. And as he moved through his morning routine, brushing his teeth, making coffee, and letting the aroma fill the small apartment, he felt a quiet excitement at the prospect of what lay ahead, tempered by a humility born of the awareness that meaningful change was neither easy nor immediate. Dee was still asleep, her soft breathing rhythmic, and he paused to observe her, contemplating the stability she provided, a gentle counterbalance to his restless energy, and he realized that part of his transformation depended on acknowledging and appreciating the grounding forces in his life, the quiet presences that offered support without judgment, reminding him that strength was amplified through connection. Dressing deliberately, selecting clothing that felt purposeful rather than random, Rerun stepped into the city streets with a heightened awareness of the world around him, the patterns of light and shadow, the subtle interactions between passers-by, the cadence of footsteps, voices, and distant engines blending into an urban symphony that seemed almost orchestrated to match his heightened state of mindfulness. And he felt a deepening connection to life itself, an understanding that observation was an active engagement, not mere passive reception. Meeting Dwayne at their usual spot, Rerun was greeted with a mixture of enthusiasm and the subtle intensity that always accompanied their collaborative sessions. And as they began reviewing plans, goals, and opportunities, he noticed how the combination of creativity, strategic thinking, and mutual accountability created a space that was at once rigorous and liberating, allowing for both risk-taking and careful consideration. And he marveled at how different this felt from the aimless energy of his previous routines, where ambition had often been deferred or dissipated through distraction. Their discussion flowed naturally from logistics to philosophy, from schedules to ethics, from the practical mechanics of their projects to deeper reflections on meaning, purpose, and the responsibility inherent in shaping outcomes that could influence not just themselves, but those they served. And Rerun found himself articulating insights that had been dormant, thoughts that emerged only when he allowed himself the mental space to consider beyond immediate gratification, beyond habitual responses, and beyond the comfortable patterns of the past. Hours passed without notice as they brainstormed, analyzed, and strategized, the intensity of their engagement punctuated occasionally by laughter, reminiscence, and the satisfaction of creative breakthroughs. And Rerun felt a profound sense of alignment, a rare equilibrium in which energy, attention, and intention coalesced into productive motion, reinforcing his belief that sustained effort combined with deliberate reflection was a foundation for meaningful growth. By midday, he stepped out for a brief break, wandering through the familiar streets of the city with a new lens, noticing subtle shifts in his perception. A street musician's careful fingering of the guitar strings, the intricate play of shadows on a brick wall, the smiles exchanged between strangers, the scent of fresh bread wafting from a bakery, and he marveled at the richness of detail he had previously overlooked, realizing that attentiveness was itself a skill, a form of engagement that amplified not just understanding but empathy, patience, and appreciation for life's nuanced beauty. Returning to Dwayne, they continued their work with renewed vigor, integrating new ideas, revising strategies, and exploring potential challenges, and Rerun felt increasingly confident in his capacity to contribute meaningfully, to translate abstract concepts into actionable plans, and to navigate the inevitable uncertainties that accompanied ambitious endeavors. Afternoon yielded to evening, and Rerun walked home with a contemplative mind, the city around him alive with movement, sound, and light, each element reinforcing his growing sense of connection and awareness, and he realized that engagement with life required both participation and observation, action and reflection, ambition and humility, each component essential to a holistic approach to personal and professional growth. Back in the apartment, he prepared a modest dinner, noting the ritualistic satisfaction in selecting ingredients, chopping vegetables with care, seasoning thoughtfully, and arranging the meal with an awareness that even ordinary tasks could be approached with mindfulness, intention, and care, transforming routine into a source of nourishment for body, mind, and spirit. Dee joined him, curious about his day, and they shared stories of accomplishments, challenges, and insights, each exchange reinforcing trust, perspective, and accountability. And Rerun found that verbalizing experiences, even mundane details, offered clarity, allowed reflection, and strengthened both his commitment and understanding of the emerging path he was constructing. After dinner, they settled in the living room, the warm glow of the lamp casting shadows across familiar objects, and Rerun engaged in quiet reflection, reviewing the day's events, evaluating progress, and considering next steps. understanding that growth was iterative, composed of intentional actions accumulated over time, and that each decision, no matter how small, had the potential to contribute to a larger pattern of development. As night deepened, he documented insights, observations, and strategies, noting not only tasks and plans but emotional responses, cognitive patterns, and emerging strengths, recognizing that self-awareness was as crucial as execution, that understanding one's motivations, fears, and tendencies could guide decisions and amplify effectiveness, and that reflection itself was an active practice requiring honesty, patience, and diligence. The city outside grew quiet, lights flickering in distant windows, punctuated occasionally by the soft hum of traffic or the distant siren, and Rerun felt a growing sense of gratitude, not only for the tangible progress of the day, but for the awareness, opportunity, and capacity to engage with life intentionally, embracing discomfort and uncertainty as necessary companions in the pursuit of meaningful outcomes. As he lay in bed later, the events of the day replaying in his mind, he noted a subtle shift in his emotional state. Anxiety replaced with determination, hesitation replaced with resolve, and the once familiar fear of failure tempered by an understanding that effort, intention, and resilience were as valuable as immediate results, and that cultivating these qualities would ensure long-term growth and fulfillment. Morning brought with it the promise of new challenges, and Rerun embraced the anticipation, recognizing that sustained transformation depended on continuity, on the willingness to act even when novelty faded, motivation waned, or the path seemed uncertain, and he resolved to meet each day with attention, courage, and deliberate engagement. At breakfast, he and Dee shared quiet conversation, exchanging reflections on the previous day and setting intentions for the next, a ritual that reinforced connection, accountability, and clarity, reminding him that meaningful growth was relational as well as personal, and that collaboration, support, and dialogue were essential components of lasting change. Leaving the apartment, Rerun moved through the city with a heightened sense of purpose, noticing interactions and subtleties he had once ignored. The gentle guidance of a parent to a child, the careful coordination of a street vendor arranging produce, the expressions of commuters navigating complex social spaces, and he felt increasingly attuned to the interplay between individual action and communal dynamics, realizing that awareness and intentional engagement could influence outcomes in ways both small and profound. Meeting Dwayne once more, they navigated a series of challenges, brainstorming solutions, weighing options, and refining plans, the conversation flowing with a mix of analytical rigor and creative exploration, punctuated by humor and shared memories, grounding the work in both seriousness and joy, and Rerun felt a deep sense of competence, validation, and agency, the confidence to contribute meaningfully and the clarity to understand both process and outcome. As evening approached, Rerun returned home, reflecting on the accumulation of effort, insight, and intention, recognizing that the momentum he had begun to generate was self-reinforcing, each action building upon the last, each reflection informing subsequent choices, and that the interplay of deliberate effort, observation, and accountability created a sustainable framework for continued growth. Dinner, conversation with Dee, and quiet reflection followed, a rhythm that reinforced stability, mindfulness, and connection, and as night deepened, Rerun lay in bed contemplating the day's progress, understanding that meaningful transformation was both cumulative and emergent, requiring patience, resilience, and consistent engagement, and that the light he sought was not a distant ideal, but a living presence cultivated through daily choices, thoughtful reflection, and authentic connection with self and others, illuminating not only the path before him, but the person he was becoming in every deliberate, intentional step. Rerun woke the next morning with a mixture of quiet anticipation and lingering nervous energy, the accumulated awareness from days of focused reflection and deliberate action settling into his consciousness like a current he could feel pulsing through his chest, and he realized that the momentum he had begun to cultivate was fragile yet potent. Fragile because it required sustained effort and vigilance. Potent because each small action seemed to reinforce the belief that he could, at last, navigate life with intentionality rather than reactive spontaneity. As he dressed, choosing an outfit that felt purposeful yet comfortable, he considered the subtle ways in which self-perception could influence behavior, understanding that the confidence he exuded in meetings and interactions was inseparable from the internal narrative he chose to cultivate, and that alignment between internal belief and external action was essential for genuine transformation. Breakfast was a brief but mindful ritual. Coffee brewed to perfection, toast buttered with deliberate attention, each sip and bite accompanied by reflection on the day ahead, as he reviewed his notes, charts, and lists of priorities, imagining the concrete steps required to translate plans into reality and feeling a sense of readiness that contrasted sharply with the indecision and avoidance that had characterized previous routines. Dee emerged from the bedroom, her presence calm and reassuring, and they shared a moment of quiet connection, a simple acknowledgement of support and companionship, the kind of unspoken affirmation that reinforced resilience and grounded Rerun's energy before he stepped into the wider world. Walking through the streets, he noticed again the intricate details of city life, the patterned shadows cast by trees along the sidewalk, the harmonics of distant conversations overlapping with the rhythmic pulse of traffic, the way sunlight caught on metallic surfaces, reflecting tiny bursts of brilliance that often went unnoticed, and he marveled at how attention itself could transform perception, making ordinary moments feel meaningful and interconnected, like threads woven into a larger tapestry he had only begun to see. Meeting Dwayne, they dove immediately into a series of meetings and planning sessions, each interaction requiring a delicate balance of attentiveness, creativity, and assertiveness, and Rerun felt a growing comfort with the discomfort inherent in growth, recognizing that challenge and uncertainty were not obstacles to be feared but instruments through which skill, understanding, and confidence were forged. They discussed strategy, anticipated potential setbacks, and explored innovative solutions, all while maintaining a dynamic dialogue that encouraged both critique and encouragement. The interplay of perspectives sharpening insight and illuminating blind spots, and Rerun realized that collaboration of this kind demanded not just intelligence and experience, but empathy, patience, and the willingness to remain vulnerable in the pursuit of a greater purpose. Hours passed unnoticed as ideas were refined, documents prepared, and projections analyzed, punctuated by brief interludes of humor and reminiscence that reminded Rerun of the importance of levity in maintaining balance and preventing fatigue, and he began to notice how the integration of work, reflection, and human connection created a rhythm that was both sustainable and deeply satisfying, fostering not only achievement but growth of character. By midday, a lunch break provided a rare opportunity for stillness and observation. He wandered to a small park nearby, noting the laughter of children, the careful footsteps of joggers, the rustle of leaves in the wind, and the intricate choreography of life that unfolded regardless of his own presence, reinforcing the lesson that observation and awareness could inform understanding, empathy, and deliberate action, and that engagement with the world required both participation and attention. Returning to meetings, Rerun approached challenges with increased confidence, articulating proposals with clarity and responding to feedback with agility, recognizing that competence was reinforced through deliberate practice, reflection, and the willingness to accept mistakes as opportunities for growth. And he felt an emerging mastery of a process that had once seemed daunting and elusive. Afternoon merged into evening as discussions concluded and actionable steps were identified, and Rerun walked home feeling both exhaustion and exhilaration, a combination that signaled the productive exertion of energy toward meaningful ends, and he reflected on the cumulative effect of effort, awareness, and intentionality, understanding that the integration of these elements was producing tangible transformation not just in outcomes, but in perception, behavior, and self-concept. Arriving at the apartment, he engaged in domestic rituals with deliberate attention, preparing a simple dinner, arranging food thoughtfully, and sharing the experience with Dee, who listened and responded with insight, curiosity, and warmth, reinforcing the importance of relational engagement, support, and shared reflection as critical components of sustainable growth and well-being. Afterward, they settled into the living room, discussing the day's achievements, challenges, and insights, Rerun noting the subtle ways in which his perspective had shifted, the internal dialogue now less dominated by self-doubt and more informed by observation, planning, and reflection. And he recognized that the act of articulating experience and receiving feedback was itself a powerful catalyst for continued development, reinforcing understanding, confidence, and strategic thinking. As night approached, Rerun documented observations, reflections, and next steps, noting patterns in his behavior, emotional responses, and cognitive tendencies, and he marveled at the depth of insight that could be gleaned from deliberate attention, awareness, and careful recording. Understanding that such practices were essential not only for accountability, but for cultivating self-knowledge, resilience, and the capacity for intentional growth. Outside, the city lights twinkled, streets quieted, and the rhythm of urban life slowed to a gentle cadence, offering a metaphorical space for contemplation, and Rerun allowed himself to reflect on the journey thus far. The accumulation of small decisions, deliberate actions, and mindful observations that collectively constituted a significant transformation, revealing patterns of potential, agency, and emergent strength previously obscured by habitual behavior and distraction. As he lay in bed later, reviewing the day's events in his mind, he felt an increased sense of alignment between intention and action, confidence and capability, energy and purpose, and he recognized that this alignment was the product of sustained effort, reflection, and commitment, a fragile yet formidable synthesis that would require continued vigilance to maintain and strengthen. Morning would bring new opportunities, challenges, and choices, and Rerun understood that success and growth were iterative, contingent upon consistent engagement, conscious decision-making, and the willingness to embrace discomfort, uncertainty, and vulnerability in the service of meaningful outcomes, and he resolved to meet each day with intention, curiosity, and determination, aware that each small effort was both cumulative and transformative. Dee's presence, quiet and reassuring, provided grounding and perspective, reminding him that transformation was relational as well as individual, that sharing insights, challenges, and reflections enriched both understanding and commitment, and that engagement with supportive partners could amplify resilience, insight, and effectiveness in navigating life's complexities. Walking through the streets the next morning, Rerun observed the subtleties of urban life anew. Interactions, gestures, sounds, and visual cues that revealed the hidden choreography of human connection, the complex web of cause and effect, and the interdependence of action, perception, and consequence, reinforcing the notion that awareness, attentiveness, and intentional engagement were not merely personal tools but instruments through which impact could extend beyond the self. Meeting Dwayne once again, they tackled layered projects, strategized solutions, and anticipated challenges, each conversation a blend of analytical rigor, creative exploration, and shared reflection, and Rerun felt increasingly confident in his capacity to contribute meaningfully, to navigate complexity, and to maintain focus amidst distraction and uncertainty, recognizing that competence, insight, and resilience were cultivated through sustained effort, collaboration, and conscious attention. As evening fell, Rerun returned home, reflecting on the day's accomplishments, challenges, and lessons learned, recognizing the cumulative power of deliberate action, mindfulness, and relational engagement, and he allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction, understanding that the emerging trajectory of his life was not an accident of circumstance, but the result of intentional, consistent, and courageous choices, each step reinforcing the light he had begun to see and nurturing the potential for continued growth, influence, and fulfillment in ways both immediate and long-term. Rerun awoke the next morning with a heightened sense of vigilance, an acute awareness that the momentum he had cultivated over the past several days was precious and fragile, and that sustaining it would require continuous effort, reflection, and a willingness to confront both external challenges and the internal impulses that had often sabotaged his intentions in the past. And as he moved through his morning routine, the aroma of coffee and the warmth of the sunlight streaming through the blinds seemed to affirm the possibility of deliberate, meaningful engagement with the world. Dee was already awake, quietly reading at the kitchen table, her presence offering the stability and calm that had become indispensable to Rerun's emerging sense of purpose, and he paused for a moment to observe her, appreciating the way her consistent support and non-judgmental companionship had allowed him to experiment with change without fear of ridicule or isolation. Understanding that relational grounding was an essential complement to personal effort. Dressing carefully, choosing clothing that conveyed both confidence and comfort, he stepped into the streets with an intensified awareness of his surroundings. The patterns of light and shadow on the sidewalks, the rhythmic cadence of footsteps and conversations, the subtle interplay of color, movement, and sound that transformed ordinary urban spaces into dynamic landscapes rich with observation and possibility. And he felt a deepening connection not only to the external environment, but to the process of active participation in life itself. Meeting Dwayne at their usual cafe, Rerun felt a blend of excitement and seriousness, the realization settling in that their collaborative sessions were more than logistical planning. They were exercises in strategic thinking, creative problem-solving, and the cultivation of resilience, discipline, and confidence, all framed within a supportive but challenging dynamic that demanded authenticity, focus, and adaptability. Their morning unfolded with a series of intensive discussions, brainstorming exercises, and reflective analyses, each interaction reinforcing Rerun's understanding that transformation required both conceptual clarity and practical application. That insight alone was insufficient without deliberate action, and that courage often meant engaging fully with uncertainty, complexity, and risk while maintaining intentionality and presence. As the hours passed, Rerun found himself articulating ideas and proposing solutions with a clarity and confidence that surprised even him. The integration of reflection, preparation, and experiential learning allowing him to navigate conversations and decisions that would once have elicited hesitation, doubt, or deflection. And he marveled at the tangible progress he was making not just in external accomplishments, but in the development of mental agility, emotional regulation, and interpersonal competence. A brief lunch provided a moment for quiet observation and reflection as Rerun wandered to a nearby park, absorbing the nuances of human behavior and environmental context, the laughter of children, the casual greetings of passers-by, the careful coordination of vendors, the sway of branches in the breeze, the warmth of sunlight on his skin. And he realized that engagement with the world required both action and observation. That understanding emerged not merely from participation, but from attentive reflection and interpretation of patterns, cues, and consequences. Returning to the cafe, he and Dwayne resumed their collaborative work, now focusing on refining strategies, anticipating potential setbacks, and identifying opportunities for creative innovation. And Rerun felt a deepening sense of competence and agency, recognizing that sustained engagement, careful observation, and willingness to experiment were the mechanisms through which tangible results could be achieved, and through which personal growth could be internalized, reinforced, and perpetuated. Afternoon merged seamlessly into evening. As the intensity of work gave way to lighter conversation, the occasional laughter punctuating focused dialogue, and Rerun noted how balance between seriousness and levity was critical for maintaining energy, focus, and perspective, reinforcing lessons in both human psychology and the dynamics of sustained effort toward meaningful goals. Walking home, Rerun allowed his mind to wander over the day's events, noting progress, lessons learned, and areas for refinement, and he felt a growing sense of self-efficacy, the recognition that deliberate, thoughtful action produced cumulative benefits not only in results, but in the cultivation of habits, awareness, and character, and that these incremental gains were building a foundation for long-term transformation. Dinner with Dee followed, quiet and intentional, a continuation of shared reflection, support, and connection, and he felt again the grounding power of relational stability, understanding that human connection amplified motivation, perspective, and resilience, and that these interpersonal dynamics were as critical to sustained growth as the individual efforts he invested in planning, learning, and action. Afterward, they settled into the living room, the glow of the lamp softening the edges of the day, and Rerun reviewed notes, plans, and reflections, recognizing emerging patterns in his behavior, cognition, and emotional responses, noting instances of clarity, moments of distraction, and opportunities for improved focus and discipline. and he began to integrate these observations into evolving strategies for both professional engagement and personal development. As night fell, Rerun allowed himself a rare period of contemplative stillness, absorbing the subtle interplay between effort, reflection, and relational reinforcement, appreciating that each component, consistent action, deliberate thought, meaningful interaction, was indispensable in cultivating not only success but sustainable transformation, and that the cultivation of this synergy was itself a skill requiring patience, persistence, and intentionality. He reflected on the past week, noting the accumulation of small victories and insights, the careful alignment between internal motivation and external action, and the ways in which deliberate practice, accountability, and relational support had accelerated his progress. And he felt a profound appreciation for both the structure he had imposed upon his life and the emergent possibilities that structure had enabled. The quiet hum of the city outside his window provided a gentle soundtrack as he considered the interconnectedness of all actions, the way each choice rippled outward, influencing immediate outcomes, interpersonal dynamics, and longer-term possibilities, and he recognized that mastery of intentional engagement was inseparable from awareness of consequence, responsibility, and opportunity, requiring a balance of courage, humility, and insight. Lying in bed, he allowed his mind to traverse both past and future, reflecting on successes, missteps, and lessons yet to be internalized, appreciating the rhythm of daily practice, the power of accumulated effort, and the importance of consciously observing not just actions but responses, motivations, and outcomes. And he recognized that the path forward would demand vigilance, flexibility, and commitment to principles as well as goals. Morning would inevitably bring new challenges, new opportunities, and fresh decisions, and Rerun felt ready to meet them with an intentionality that was simultaneously reflective and active, acknowledging that growth was not linear but iterative, dependent upon consistent engagement, honest self-assessment, and the courage to act in alignment with emerging understanding, and that the light he was pursuing was sustained not by isolated moments of insight, but by continuous, deliberate effort in thought, action, and relationship. As he drifted toward sleep, the weight of accomplishment mingled with anticipation, the sense of potential coexisting with the recognition of the work still required, and he allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction, appreciating that the journey itself, the decisions, reflections, interactions, and deliberate acts, was as meaningful as any tangible result, and that the integration of personal effort, relational support, and mindful observation was creating a life that was not only more productive but richer, more aware, and increasingly aligned with the person he aspired to become, ready to meet each day with renewed energy, focus, and courage to embrace the unfolding possibilities of his life. Rerun woke to the soft glow of morning filtering through the blinds, a gentle reminder that a new day was beginning, and with it, another opportunity to act intentionally, to step into life with the awareness, courage, and focus he had been cultivating over the past week, and he felt a subtle excitement mingled with the nervous energy of knowing that growth required consistency, reflection, and the willingness to confront discomfort head-on rather than retreating into old habits or distractions. As he dressed, carefully choosing clothing that conveyed both readiness and confidence, he reflected on the delicate interplay between self-perception and outward behavior, recognizing that the way he presented himself, posture, tone, attentiveness, was inseparable from the internal narrative he nurtured, and that aligning internal belief with external action was essential for sustaining the transformation he sought. Breakfast was a moment of quiet ritual, a deliberate practice of mindfulness in motion, as he brewed coffee, buttered toast, and sipped slowly while reviewing notes and strategies for the day, mentally mapping the tasks, interactions, and challenges ahead, and he felt a grounded readiness, an alignment of intention and action that contrasted sharply with the impulsivity and reactive tendencies of his past. Dee emerged, her calm presence and gentle curiosity reinforcing the sense of relational stability that had become critical to his evolving sense of purpose, and they exchanged brief but meaningful conversation, sharing insights, observations, and intentions for the day, reinforcing the dynamic of mutual support that allowed Rerun to approach his goals with both accountability and encouragement. Stepping into the city streets, he engaged his senses fully, noticing the interplay of light and shadow, the cadence of footsteps, the overlapping hum of voices, the faint scent of morning pastries, the subtle movements of trees in the breeze, and he marveled at how attentive observation transformed ordinary urban spaces into complex, dynamic environments rich with information, patterns, and opportunity for learning, insight, and engagement. Meeting Dwayne at their usual spot, they quickly settled into discussions that were equal parts strategy, analysis, and creative exploration, and Rerun found himself navigating the balance between listening attentively, contributing ideas, and anticipating challenges with increasing ease, the collaborative process reinforcing both confidence and competence while cultivating a disciplined approach to problem-solving. Their conversation flowed naturally, shifting from immediate tasks to long-term vision, from the pragmatic mechanics of implementation to reflections on purpose, impact, and responsibility, and Rerun realized that these dialogues were exercises not only in project management, but in personal growth, testing his capacity for reflection, patience, adaptability, and courage while also reinforcing relational trust, empathy, and communication skills. Hours passed with a seamless integration of focus and occasional levity, as they brainstormed solutions, weighed alternatives, and mapped out contingencies, and Rerun felt a profound sense of alignment, a rare equilibrium in which intellectual, emotional, and relational faculties coalesced into purposeful action, highlighting the symbiotic relationship between insight, effort, and collaboration in the pursuit of meaningful outcomes. Lunch provided a brief pause, allowing for reflection, observation, and absorption of the environment. The rhythm of parkgoers, the laughter of children, the gestures of commuters, the scent of fresh flowers, the light shifting as clouds passed overhead, and Rerun noted how awareness itself was a skill, a form of engagement that deepened understanding, enhanced empathy, and strengthened both personal and interpersonal decision-making. Returning to work with Dwayne, Rerun approached a complex challenge that demanded both analytical reasoning and creative insight, the interplay of feedback, iteration, and synthesis guiding the development of practical solutions, and he felt a sense of mastery emerging, not from instant competence, but from the disciplined accumulation of effort, reflection, and deliberate practice, each step reinforcing skill, confidence, and resilience. Afternoon yielded to evening as discussions concluded, action plans were formalized, and Rerun navigated the city streets home with a sense of quiet satisfaction, recognizing that productivity was inseparable from awareness, intentionality, and the quality of engagement with both tasks and people, and that sustainable growth relied on consistent application of these principles over time. Returning to the apartment, he engaged in domestic rituals with care, preparing dinner, organizing space, and attending to details with mindfulness, each act reinforcing the principle that personal responsibility, intentionality, and routine could serve as stabilizing forces in the broader pursuit of growth and purpose, integrating mundane tasks with broader objectives in a harmonious rhythm. Dee joined him for the evening meal, and they shared stories, laughter, and thoughtful dialogue, reflecting on the day's successes, challenges, and observations, reinforcing the relational dimension of growth, and emphasizing that transformation was not only an individual endeavor, but a network process in which support, feedback, and empathy amplified effort and insight. After dinner, Rerun reviewed notes, documented reflections, and refined strategies, observing patterns in cognition, emotional responses, and behavior, and integrating these insights into future planning, cultivating a meta-awareness that allowed him to anticipate challenges, regulate emotions, and adapt strategies in real time, enhancing both effectiveness and resilience. Night deepened, and Rerun permitted himself contemplative stillness, acknowledging the delicate balance of effort, observation, and relational support that underpinned his emerging transformation, appreciating the cumulative power of small, intentional actions executed with consistency and mindfulness, and understanding that each deliberate choice contributed to the larger trajectory of his life, reinforcing confidence, competence, and self-awareness. Reflecting on the journey thus far, he noted the emergence of habits, patterns, and perspectives that were markedly different from those that had previously defined him. Less impulsive, more deliberate. Less distracted, more attentive. Less reactive, more strategic. And he recognized that the process of internalizing these shifts was ongoing, requiring patience, consistency, and conscious reinforcement through daily practice, reflection, and relational engagement. The quiet city outside his window offered both backdrop and metaphor, lights flickering, streets calm, life continuing in a rhythm both independent of and interconnected with his own choices. And Rerun recognized that awareness of this interplay between personal action and larger context was critical for both strategic planning and meaningful engagement, and that the cultivation of perspective, insight, and intentionality would be ongoing, iterative, and deeply rewarding. Lying in bed, he reviewed the day's progress mentally, noting instances of clarity, focus, and effective engagement, acknowledging moments of distraction or self-doubt without judgment, and integrating lessons into a growing framework of self-understanding, personal agency, and strategic action, reinforcing the emerging sense of autonomy, capability, and intentionality that had begun to define this period of his life. Morning would bring new challenges, interactions, and opportunities to act with awareness and courage, and Rerun felt ready to meet them, understanding that growth was cumulative and iterative, dependent upon consistent engagement, reflective practice, relational support, and the courage to confront both internal and external uncertainties, and that the light he was pursuing was cultivated daily through deliberate attention, mindful action, and authentic connection, illuminating not only his path but the potential for meaningful influence, insight, and fulfillment in every facet of life he touched. Rerun woke to the muted hum of the city outside, the early lights spilling across the apartment in long, soft streaks, and for a moment he lay in bed observing the subtle play of shadow and brightness, feeling the quiet potency of the morning as a signal that another day of deliberate action and focused engagement had begun. And he understood that sustaining the momentum he had built required not only discipline, but an openness to the unexpected, a willingness to adapt, and the courage to confront the familiar impulses that had previously led him to distraction, avoidance, or superficiality. Dee was quietly reading at the kitchen table, her presence a stabilizing force he had come to rely upon, and he noticed how her calm attentiveness allowed him to prepare for the day without the familiar rush of anxiety, reinforcing the idea that relational grounding, empathy, and support were integral to the process of transformation, amplifying both energy and clarity. Dressing with intention, selecting attire that conveyed readiness and self-respect, Rerun stepped into the streets, attuning himself to the subtle details of his environment, the rhythm of footsteps, the interplay of voices, the glint of sunlight on windows, the scent of fresh bread and flowers, and he realized that mindfulness and observation were active practices, ways of engaging that enriched perception, sharpened focus, and heightened both understanding and empathy. Meeting Dwayne at their regular cafe, Rerun felt the familiar blend of focus and excitement, the sense that collaborative engagement was both a challenge and a catalyst for growth, and they began their morning session with a review of ongoing projects, examining progress, identifying potential obstacles, and exploring innovative solutions, their dialogue blending analytical rigor with creative exploration, insight, and the occasional laughter that reminded them of the human element woven into every plan and task. Hours passed with intense focus, each decision and discussion reinforcing Rerun's sense of agency, competence, and emerging mastery of both strategic thinking and relational dynamics. As he contributed ideas, listened carefully, and refined understanding through active engagement, recognizing that the cumulative effect of these efforts was transforming not only the trajectory of their work, but the development of his own capacity for focus, discipline, and emotional regulation. A brief lunch break allowed for both nourishment and reflection, Rerun wandering through a nearby park, observing children playing, joggers pacing with rhythm, street vendors arranging their goods, and passers-by exchanging greetings, and he marveled at the intricate choreography of everyday life, noting the subtle ways in which intention, observation, and action intersected, influencing both immediate outcomes and longer-term consequences, reinforcing the understanding that mindful engagement, was both a skill and a strategy for sustained growth. Returning to Dwayne, they dove into complex problem-solving exercises, testing assumptions, exploring contingencies, and weighing risks against potential rewards. And Rerun felt the flow of synergy, the energy generated by collaborative focus, reflection, and creativity, a reminder that productivity was inseparable from alignment between effort, strategy, and relational dynamics, and that each layer of engagement, cognitive, emotional, relational, was essential for meaningful, lasting impact. Afternoon gave way to evening, and Rerun returned home with a sense of satisfaction tempered by reflection, noting the subtle ways in which focus, observation, and deliberate engagement had shaped both his day and his emerging sense of self, the alignment between intention and action producing a quiet confidence that contrasted sharply with the reactive, impulsive tendencies of his past. Dinner with Dee was simple but deliberate, each gesture, conversation, and observation reinforcing relational connection, the sharing of insights, challenges, and reflections deepening understanding, trust, and perspective, and reminding Rerun that meaningful transformation was as much about relational support as personal discipline, that growth flourished where collaboration, empathy, and mutual accountability were present. Afterward, they settled in the living room, the soft glow of a lamp casting warmth over familiar furnishings, and Rerun reviewed his notes, reflecting on patterns of behavior, moments of clarity, and areas for continued improvement, integrating both successes and missteps into a developing framework of self-awareness, strategic planning, and emotional regulation, understanding that deliberate reflection was as important as deliberate action for sustained personal and professional growth. As night deepened, he allowed himself a contemplative pause, appreciating the accumulation of effort, insight, and relational support, the quiet reinforcement of habits, and the development of strategies for maintaining focus, attention, and resilience. And he recognized that transformation was iterative, requiring patience, consistency, and the integration of observation, reflection, and relational accountability into daily practice. The city outside was quieting, the rhythm of urban life softening as lights twinkled in distant windows, the occasional hum of traffic or distant siren punctuating the evening. And Rerun allowed himself a rare moment of gratitude, acknowledging the alignment between his actions, intentions, and emerging sense of purpose, and appreciating the subtle power of relational support, deliberate planning, and mindful engagement in creating momentum, confidence, and the capacity for continued growth. He reflected on the past week, noting how incremental choices, consistent effort, and mindful observation had produced cumulative results not only in tangible outcomes, but in the refinement of habits, perception, focus, and emotional regulation, and he recognized that this layered process, intentional action reinforced by reflection and relational support, was central to sustaining the transformation he sought. Lying in bed, Rerun considered the interplay of effort, attention, and relational engagement, recognizing the delicate balance required to maintain progress, and he prepared mentally for the day ahead, anticipating both opportunities and challenges, and resolving to meet them with courage, focus, and intentionality, aware that growth depended upon the careful cultivation of habits, reflection, and alignment between values and actions. Morning would inevitably bring its own tests of patience, focus, and discipline, and Rerun felt ready, aware that the light he was pursuing was not a sudden revelation, but the result of consistent, deliberate effort, mindful engagement, and the integration of observation, reflection, and relational support, and that each day offered the opportunity to reinforce, refine, and expand the momentum he had been building, cultivating both capability and confidence while deepening connection to himself, others, and the world around him. As he drifted toward sleep, anticipation and satisfaction mingled, the quiet reassurance that his efforts were meaningful coexisting with the excitement of potential challenges and discoveries, and Rerun allowed himself to rest, trusting that the habits, awareness, and intentionality he had been cultivating would guide him through the uncertainties of tomorrow, illuminating a path toward personal growth, relational depth, and purposeful engagement, one deliberate step at a time. Rerun awoke to the soft patter of rain against the window, the rhythm steady and soothing, and he lay for a moment listening, appreciating the calm that accompanied the early morning and the way it encouraged reflection before action, understanding that growth was not simply about movement and effort, but about awareness, patience, and the ability to integrate observation into deliberate engagement. And he felt a sense of readiness to approach the day with both focus and adaptability. Dee was in the kitchen preparing breakfast, and her quiet efficiency reminded him once again of the importance of relational support, how the presence of someone grounded and attentive could anchor his own energy, providing space for contemplation while also reinforcing a sense of accountability, and he marveled at how much strength he drew from small routines shared in companionship. Dressing with intention, he selected clothing that conveyed purpose and confidence, noting that even such minor choices influenced his mindset, the alignment between external presentation and internal state reinforcing the growing synergy he had been cultivating between perception, action, and reflection, and he realized that deliberate attention to small details was itself a form of practice, sharpening awareness and reinforcing discipline. As he stepped outside, the cool drizzle on his skin heightened his alertness, the sensory engagement making the city seem alive with subtle rhythms, from the reflective glint of wet pavement to the muffled footsteps of early commuters, the distant hum of traffic interspersed with occasional bursts of conversation, and he felt a profound sense of connection to the unfolding patterns of life, recognizing that attentive observation was an active engagement with both environment and experience. Meeting Dwayne at their usual cafe, they launched into discussions with renewed energy, reviewing ongoing projects, weighing risks, considering potential contingencies, and evaluating strategies, and Rerun felt the flow of ideas and analysis stimulating both creativity and strategic thinking, reinforcing his sense of competence, agency, and growing mastery of complex problem-solving while maintaining relational harmony and collaboration. Their conversation ranged from practical implementation details to conceptual reflection on purpose, meaning, and impact, and Rerun recognized that these dialogues were exercises not only in professional efficiency, but in personal growth, testing his capacity to listen, adapt, contribute authentically, and balance intellect with empathy, all while sustaining focus amidst evolving challenges. Hours passed in seamless engagement, the intensity punctuated occasionally by humor, anecdotes, and reminiscence, and Rerun observed how levity provided necessary relief and reinforced relational bonds, creating an environment in which both creativity and disciplined thought could thrive, highlighting the synergy between focus, collaboration, and human connection. Lunch offered a brief interlude, a chance to observe, reflect, and absorb, and Rerun wandered to a small green space, noting the careful choreography of urban life, the gestures of parents guiding children, the measured steps of commuters, the casual exchanges of street vendors and customers, and he realized that awareness itself was a form of action, a way of tuning into patterns, behaviors, and nuances that informed both strategic thinking and emotional understanding, and that intentional observation could enhance decision-making, empathy, and engagement across contexts. Returning to work with Dwayne, Rerun approached a complex scenario requiring both analytical rigor and creative flexibility, navigating feedback, synthesizing ideas, and iterating solutions, and he felt a growing mastery of the interplay between reflection, insight, and practical execution, the process reinforcing confidence while maintaining humility, focus, and relational awareness. Afternoon transitioned into evening as meetings concluded, action steps were formalized, and Rerun moved through the city streets home with a sense of satisfaction tempered by contemplative attention, noting how sustained engagement, deliberate observation, and relational interaction had collectively shaped the day's accomplishments, deepening his sense of self-efficacy, awareness, and preparedness for future challenges. At home, he engaged in domestic routines with care and mindfulness, preparing dinner, tending to small chores, and reinforcing the integration of ordinary tasks with broader objectives, each action reinforcing discipline, presence, and intention, and highlighting the essential connection between self-maintenance and sustainable engagement in more complex professional or personal endeavors. Dee joined him at the table, their conversation flowing naturally from daily observations to reflections on insights, challenges, and relational dynamics, and Rerun appreciated the depth of understanding, encouragement, and accountability that emerged from this shared dialogue, recognizing that relational support was inseparable from personal growth, amplifying both clarity and motivation while providing critical grounding in moments of doubt or distraction. Post-dinner reflection involved documenting lessons learned, patterns observed, and strategies refined, integrating successes and challenges into a coherent framework that strengthened both immediate action and longer-term development, allowing Rerun to anticipate obstacles, regulate emotional responses, and approach future decisions with clarity, confidence, and adaptability. The city outside had quieted, lights twinkling across streets and buildings, and Rerun allowed himself to absorb the interplay of external stillness and internal reflection, appreciating the cumulative impact of consistent, intentional practice in observation, reflection, and relational engagement, recognizing that transformation was iterative, ongoing, and dependent upon both conscious effort and sustained attention. He reflected on the past week, noting incremental gains, improvements in focus and relational skill, and the refinement of habits, understanding that growth was cumulative and layered, requiring patience, consistency, and deliberate application of insight across contexts, and he felt a deepening satisfaction in both progress achieved and potential yet to be realized. Lying in bed, he considered the emerging alignment between intention, action, and outcome, the synergy between awareness, reflection, and relational engagement, and the iterative process by which each day contributed to both skill development and the cultivation of a more integrated self, recognizing that mastery was not a destination but a continuous practice of deliberate, thoughtful, and attentive engagement. The light of the morning, filtered through memory and anticipation, reinforced the sense that progress was both tangible and cumulative, and Rerun allowed himself to rest, understanding that preparedness, observation, and intentionality would guide him through the uncertainties of tomorrow, sustaining growth, competence, and resilience, and illuminating the path toward continued self-realization, purposeful engagement, and meaningful impact in every aspect of life. Sleep enveloped him with a mixture of reflection and anticipation, the quiet awareness of accumulated effort, mindful action, and relational support blending with the excitement of future possibilities, reinforcing the understanding that each deliberate choice, moment of observation, and act of engagement contributed to the larger arc of transformation, building not only immediate accomplishment, but the enduring capacity to act with clarity, intention, and confidence in every subsequent day. Rerun woke to the soft gray light of a cloudy morning, the gentle drizzle tapping against the window, a quiet rhythm that seemed to synchronize with his own sense of anticipation and readiness. And he lay for a moment reflecting on the accumulation of days, the deliberate steps, observations, and interactions that had begun to shape a new version of himself, one more intentional, disciplined, and aware. And he realized that each morning offered not just a continuation, but an opportunity to deepen focus, refine practice, and engage with life more fully than before, embracing both challenge and possibility with measured attention. Dee was at the kitchen table, quietly sipping coffee, her calm demeanor and attentiveness providing a stabilizing counterbalance to Rerun's heightened energy, and he noted again how relational grounding, steady, supportive, and non-judgmental, amplified his capacity for sustained effort, reflection, and intentional decision-making, reinforcing the notion that personal growth was inseparable from relational context and mutual accountability. Dressing thoughtfully, selecting clothes that conveyed purpose and comfort, he stepped outside into the damp city streets, observing the subtle details of the environment, the reflective sheen of rain-soaked pavement, the muted colors of umbrellas passing overhead, the rhythm of footsteps and the occasional burst of conversation, the scent of wet earth and fresh bread drifting from nearby shops. And he appreciated how careful observation could transform ordinary routines into exercises of engagement, attentiveness, and learning, cultivating both awareness and emotional resonance. Meeting Dwayne at their usual cafe, they launched into the day's work with an intensity that had become familiar yet never mundane. Reviewing current projects, assessing progress, identifying potential risks, and exploring opportunities for innovation. Their conversation blending strategic reasoning, creative problem-solving, and relational interplay, each element reinforcing the others in a complex, productive synergy that engaged intellect, emotion, and practical skill simultaneously. The morning unfolded in a seamless flow of thought, dialogue, and reflection, punctuated occasionally by moments of levity or anecdote, and Rerun noted how the combination of rigorous focus and human connection amplified both learning and productivity, providing a rhythm that balanced challenge with engagement, structure with flexibility, and action with insight, deepening both competence and confidence. A brief lunch allowed for pause, observation, and reflection as Rerun wandered through a nearby park, absorbing details often overlooked. The playful coordination of children at recess, the measured gait of joggers, the casual exchanges of vendors and pedestrians, the gentle movement of leaves in the breeze, and he recognized that intentional observation was itself a form of practice, a way to cultivate awareness, empathy, and understanding, and that these skills were transferable to problem-solving, interpersonal relations, and self-regulation in complex contexts. Returning to Dwayne, they approached a particularly challenging scenario, one requiring both analytical rigor and creative flexibility, and Rerun found that the iterative process of brainstorming, testing assumptions, and refining strategies fostered a deep sense of mastery, not merely in execution, but in comprehension, emotional intelligence, and adaptability, reinforcing confidence while maintaining humility, curiosity, and relational awareness. Afternoon gave way to evening as meetings concluded and action plans crystallized, and Rerun moved through the rain-slicked streets home with a reflective mind, contemplating how consistent effort, attentive observation, and deliberate engagement had shaped not only outcomes, but his evolving sense of self, producing a harmony between intention, action, and insight that contrasted sharply with the fragmented, reactive tendencies of his earlier routines. At home, he engaged in domestic rituals. With mindful care, preparing a simple dinner, arranging space thoughtfully, and completing small chores with attention, reinforcing the notion that everyday practices, when performed intentionally, were integral to sustaining energy, focus, and purpose, and that personal discipline in ordinary tasks directly supported larger goals and transformative processes. Dee joined him, and their conversation flowed naturally from daily experiences to insights, challenges, and reflections on progress, deepening relational connection and reinforcing the feedback loops that allowed for both accountability and encouragement, and Rerun recognized that relational support was inseparable from individual growth, amplifying both awareness and capability. After dinner, he reviewed notes, reflections, and action items, documenting patterns, emotional responses, and cognitive tendencies, integrating successes and lessons learned into a cohesive framework that strengthened decision-making, anticipation, and adaptive strategy, and he felt the quiet satisfaction of seeing tangible evidence of iterative growth, not just in outcomes but in habits, awareness, and relational skill. As night deepened, Rerun allowed himself contemplative stillness, observing the interplay between effort, reflection, and relational reinforcement, appreciating how these elements combine to cultivate resilience, focus, and intentional action, and recognizing that the transformative process was ongoing, cumulative, and dependent on the deliberate integration of observation, mindfulness, and collaboration. The city outside had grown quiet, the occasional distant siren or car engine punctuating the otherwise still night, and Rerun reflected on the trajectory of the past days, noting how incremental improvements, disciplined practice, and mindful engagement had produced both internal shifts and tangible outcomes, reinforcing the belief that sustained attention, intentionality, and relational support were the foundation for meaningful growth. Lying in bed, he considered the alignment of intention, action, and observation, the reinforcement of habits and relational support, and the iterative process by which each day contributed to cumulative growth, understanding that mastery was not a destination, but a continuous practice of deliberate engagement, reflection, and adaptation, each choice building upon the last in a web of interconnected learning and development. Morning would inevitably bring new opportunities, challenges, and moments of insight, and Rerun felt prepared to meet them with courage, focus, and deliberate attention, aware that the light he sought was not a sudden revelation, but the product of sustained effort, careful observation, and the integration of reflection, relational support, and mindful action into every aspect of life. As he drifted toward sleep, he allowed anticipation and satisfaction to coexist, appreciating the cumulative value of small, consistent choices and deliberate engagement, trusting that the habits, insights, and relational connections he had nurtured would continue to guide him through uncertainties, illuminate the path forward, and cultivate both personal growth and meaningful influence in every dimension of his life, reinforcing the confidence and clarity necessary to meet each new day with intentionality and purpose. Rerun awoke to the quiet hum of the city stirring beneath a pale morning sky, the soft illumination filtering through the blinds casting long, delicate shadows across the room, and he lay for a moment reflecting on the subtle but tangible shifts that had begun to define his life, the deliberate accumulation of choices, observations, and reflective practices that had transformed not only his external routine, but the internal landscape of awareness, focus, and resilience, and he felt a renewed sense of purpose, an understanding that each day offered the opportunity to deepen engagement, refine habits, and act with intentionality in both ordinary and extraordinary circumstances. Dee was already at the kitchen table, immersed in her own morning ritual, and the calm certainty of her presence reminded Rerun once again of the stabilizing power of relational grounding, how consistent support, shared reflection, and empathetic attention amplified his capacity to sustain focus, regulate emotion, and navigate complex situations. And he recognized that transformation was inseparable from the relational context in which it unfolded, the interplay between personal agency and social connection forming a lattice of accountability, encouragement, and perspective. Dressing with deliberation, choosing clothing that projected both confidence and readiness, he stepped into the city streets, immediately attuned to the subtle layers of sensation and movement, the glint of light on puddled pavement, the rhythmic cadence of hurried footsteps, the gentle rustle of leaves stirred by the breeze, the low hum of engines, the muted chatter of early commuters, and he felt a heightened connection to the environment, understanding that careful observation was both a skill and a form of engagement, a practice that enriched perception, fostered empathy, and informed intentional action. Meeting Dwayne at their usual cafe, Rerun experienced the familiar blend of anticipation and focus, knowing that collaborative engagement was both challenging and reinforcing, an arena in which strategy, creativity, and relational dynamics converged, requiring him to listen, adapt, contribute, and anticipate, all while maintaining clarity, presence, and composure. And he felt the satisfaction of seeing effort, insight, and relational cooperation produce tangible movement toward their shared objectives. Their discussion flowed seamlessly from operational details to conceptual reflection, from strategy and implementation to broader considerations of impact, purpose, and potential, and Rerun recognized that these conversations were exercises in applied awareness, testing not only intellectual capacity, but emotional intelligence, adaptive flexibility, and the ability to balance analytical rigor with empathy and relational sensitivity. Hours passed in a rhythm of concentrated work, reflection, and intermittent humor, the latter reminding him that levity and human connection were integral components of sustainable effort, reinforcing engagement, creativity, and resilience. And he noted how each small breakthrough, insight, or collaborative decision contributed to a larger trajectory of progress, both externally in terms of concrete goals and internally in terms of self-perception, confidence, and competence. Lunch offered a chance for respite, observation, and reflection as Rerun wandered through a nearby park, absorbing the choreography of life unfolding around him. Children running and laughing, joggers moving in measured pace, vendors arranging their stalls, commuters exchanging brief greetings, the gentle sway of branches in the breeze, the muted reflection of light on wet surfaces. And he realized that intentional observation was itself a form of practice, strengthening awareness, empathy, and strategic thinking, and reinforcing the understanding that engagement required both participation and attentive reflection. Returning to Dwayne, they tackled a complex challenge requiring the integration of analytical thinking, creative problem-solving, and relational negotiation. And Rerun felt the flow of synergy, The energy generated by focused collaboration, iterative feedback, and shared insight, producing both tangible results and intangible growth, reinforcing the emerging mastery of self-regulation, adaptability, and cognitive emotional integration. Afternoon transitioned into evening as tasks concluded, action plans solidified, and Rerun walked home with a reflective mind, contemplating the cumulative impact of disciplined effort, deliberate observation, and relational engagement, noting how each component reinforced the others in a feedback loop of growth, capability, and resilience. And he felt a deepening appreciation for the interplay between intentional action, reflection, and relational dynamics in creating sustainable transformation. At home, he attended to domestic rituals, preparing dinner, tidying space, engaging in small acts of care, with mindful attention, understanding that ordinary tasks, performed with intentionality, contributed not only to personal efficiency, but also to emotional regulation, habit formation, and the creation of a stable foundation from which greater accomplishments could emerge, reinforcing the integration of routine, reflection, and relational support in the pursuit of purposeful growth. Dee joined him at the table, and their conversation meandered effortlessly between practical observations, emotional reflections, and insights gained from the day's interactions, deepening relational trust, reinforcing accountability, and amplifying understanding. And Rerun realized that relational support was not ancillary, but central to sustained transformation, that shared dialogue, empathy, and reflection strengthened both personal and collaborative development. After dinner, he reviewed notes, documented observations, and refined strategies, integrating successes, missteps, and emerging patterns into a coherent framework that enhanced anticipation, self-regulation, and adaptive planning, reinforcing the iterative nature of growth, the cumulative power of deliberate action, and the importance of reflective practice in both personal and professional spheres. The night outside settled into a gentle calm, punctuated by the occasional distant sound, and Rerun allowed himself contemplative stillness, recognizing how the integration of effort, observation, reflection, and relational support had produced measurable change, cultivating focus, clarity, competence, and resilience. And he appreciated that transformation was neither instantaneous nor linear, but the product of sustained, deliberate, and attentive practice over time. He reflected on the progress of the past week, noting how incremental efforts, strategic observation, and consistent engagement with both people and tasks had reinforced self-efficacy, emotional regulation, and adaptive capacity, and he recognized that the light he pursued was emerging gradually, nurtured through patience, consistency, and the integration of daily practice, mindful reflection, and relational feedback, illuminating the path forward with increasing clarity. Lying in bed, he allowed his mind to traverse both accomplishments and opportunities, integrating lessons learned with anticipations of new challenges, understanding that mastery was a continuous process of deliberate engagement, reflection, and adaptive learning, each moment building upon the last, shaping not only immediate outcomes, but also long-term capability, insight, and resilience. And he resolved to meet the coming day with intention, courage, and sustained attention, trusting the habits, strategies, and relational support he had cultivated to guide him forward, reinforcing both personal growth and the capacity to engage meaningfully with the world. The quiet city beyond his window mirrored the calm diligence of his mind, the hum of distant traffic and faint murmurs of life blending with his contemplative state, and Rerun allowed a sense of satisfaction and anticipation to coexist, embracing the understanding that the deliberate accumulation of insight, effort, observation, and relational engagement was shaping a path that was both meaningful and sustainable, preparing him to meet each new day with clarity, purpose, and confidence, and illuminating not only the trajectory of his immediate actions, but the evolving person he was becoming through consistent, intentional practice. Rerun awoke to a soft, golden light spilling through the blinds, the warmth of morning carrying with it both the promise of new beginnings and the quiet reassurance of accumulated experience. And he lay for a moment absorbing the rhythm of the city outside, the gentle stirrings of life, the distant hum of early commuters, the subtle shift in light as clouds passed overhead. and he recognized that each day was both an opportunity and a continuation, a chance to integrate reflection, observation, and deliberate action into the ongoing project of personal growth, and to further cultivate the alignment between intention, capability, and relational engagement that had become central to his life. Dee was in the kitchen preparing breakfast, moving with calm efficiency, and Rerun noticed the stabilizing effect of her presence, how the combination of empathy, attentiveness, and consistency provided a grounding counterpoint to his heightened focus and occasional restlessness, reinforcing the insight that transformation was relational as well as individual, that support, dialogue, and mutual reflection amplified the impact of deliberate action and sustained attention, and that his emerging sense of agency was inseparable from the network of relationships that nurtured, challenged, and encouraged him. Dressing with intention, selecting clothing that projected readiness and confidence, he stepped into the streets, attuned to every detail of his environment, the patterns of light reflecting on wet pavement, the cadence of footsteps mingling with the muted roar of distant traffic, the gestures of pedestrians exchanging greetings, the scent of coffee and baked goods drifting from nearby cafes. And he felt acutely aware that mindful observation was itself a form of active engagement, shaping perception, informing decisions, and strengthening both situational awareness and emotional intelligence, cultivating skills that were applicable across personal, professional, and relational contexts. Meeting Dwayne at their usual cafe, Rerun felt the familiar surge of focus, collaboration, and anticipation, understanding that their sessions were a convergence of analysis, creativity, and relational dynamics, a space in which ideas could be tested, strategies refined, and insight deepened. And he approached each discussion with a balance of attentiveness, contribution, and adaptability, recognizing that the quality of engagement was as critical as the outcome, and that progress emerged from the interplay of reflection, disciplined action, and collaborative iteration. Their conversation ranged seamlessly from tactical problem-solving to conceptual reflection, assessing current projects, anticipating potential challenges, exploring opportunities for innovation, and considering long-term implications. And Rerun realized that this iterative dialogue was a form of deliberate practice, strengthening his capacity for strategic thinking, creative flexibility, emotional regulation, and relational acumen simultaneously, and reinforcing the understanding that mastery was cultivated through consistent effort, applied insight, and attentive engagement. Hours passed as they navigated complex scenarios, testing assumptions, integrating feedback, and iterating solutions, each decision and reflection producing both tangible outcomes and intangible growth, reinforcing competence, confidence, and the emergent alignment between intention, action, and perception that had become the hallmark of his evolving approach to life. Lunch offered a brief respite, a chance for observation and contemplation, as Rerun walked through a nearby park, noting the subtle choreography of life around him. Children playing and laughing, joggers maintaining steady pace, vendors arranging their wares, commuters exchanging brief greetings, leaves swaying gently in the breeze, light glinting off wet surfaces, and he appreciated how intentional awareness could illuminate patterns, foster empathy, and enhance decision-making, reinforcing the understanding that attention itself was an act of engagement and a tool for growth. Returning to Dwayne, they tackled a particularly intricate challenge requiring both analytical rigor and creative problem-solving, navigating complex relational dynamics and iterative decision-making. And Rerun felt a deepening sense of mastery emerging, not as a sudden acquisition of skill, but as the cumulative result of sustained focus, reflection, observation, and relational practice, each experience reinforcing insight, adaptability, and resilience. Afternoon transitioned into evening, and Rerun walked home with a reflective mind, noting how the integration of deliberate action, mindful observation, and relational support had shaped both his external accomplishments and internal sense of competence and purpose. And he recognized that sustainable growth required the deliberate weaving together of effort, awareness, and human connection, a synthesis that produced both tangible progress and enduring transformation. At home, he engaged in ordinary tasks with mindful attention, preparing dinner, arranging the space, tending to small responsibilities, with the awareness that routine, when performed deliberately, was an essential mechanism for sustaining energy, focus, and capacity for higher-level endeavors, reinforcing both self-discipline and the alignment of action with intention. Dee joined him, and their conversation moved fluidly between observations, reflections, insights, and shared experiences, deepening relational trust, reinforcing accountability, and amplifying understanding. And Rerun recognized that relational engagement was both a mirror and a catalyst, reflecting progress and potential while simultaneously nurturing resilience, clarity, and motivation. After dinner, he reviewed notes, documented reflections, and refined strategies, integrating successes, challenges, and emergent patterns into a framework of understanding that strengthened anticipation, self-regulation, and adaptive planning, reinforcing the iterative nature of growth and the cumulative impact of deliberate action over time. The night outside was calm, punctuated only by distant traffic and faint urban murmurs, and Rerun allowed himself a contemplative pause, appreciating the alignment of effort, observation, reflection, and relational reinforcement, and recognizing that transformation was not instantaneous or linear, but the product of sustained, consistent, and attentive engagement with life, oneself, and others. Reflecting on the cumulative trajectory of the past weeks, he noted the refinement of habits, perceptual awareness, relational skill, and cognitive emotional integration, understanding that each small decision, deliberate observation, and reflective practice had contributed to a larger arc of growth, capability, and insight, producing not only immediate results, but the enduring capacity to act with intention, confidence, and empathy in all facets of life. Lying in bed, Rerun allowed his thoughts to traverse both accomplishments and possibilities, integrating lessons learned with anticipation of future challenges, understanding that mastery was a continuous process of deliberate engagement, reflection, and adaptive learning, each day reinforcing skills, resilience, and insight while contributing to an evolving sense of purpose, competence, and relational depth. Morning would inevitably bring new tests, opportunities, and discoveries, and Rerun felt ready to meet them with clarity, focus, and intentionality, trusting that the habits, relational support, and strategies he had cultivated would sustain him, illuminate paths forward, and amplify both personal growth and meaningful impact, reinforcing the alignment of intention, action, and observation that had become central to his life. And he drifted into sleep with the quiet satisfaction that the light he had sought and nurtured was no longer distant, but embedded within his daily practice, awareness, and engagement with the world, guiding him steadily toward the future he was creating, one deliberate and mindful step at a time.